Has agreed to stay in Chicago 5 years, $250 million. His game is taking new heights with the Bulls. And Greg, that's really helped ascend Chicago to new heights as a team in the East.
Yeah, if you go back to last season prior to the injuries, they were as good as anybody in the NBA, and then the injuries kind of derailed them. So they've got something to build on, and obviously when you look at Zach LaVine, this is a guy that has a chance to be an all-NBA caliber player. I think the chemistry was starting to develop with he and DeRozan. If you can get Patrick Williams back into the fold, you get a healthy Lonzo Ball and Caruso. This is a team that could make some noise in that Eastern Conference.
Zion Williamson, he's nearing a 5-year rookie max extension. A lot of questions about would he do this? Well, up to $231 million is what it could be worth. Listen, when this guy is in the lineup, he's a unique force that the game really hasn't ever seen before. There's no really question there. But, Ryan, it's his availability. When is he going to be there?
That's the big question, Nabil. And I think what the Pelicans will do is look at Joel Embiid's contract with Philadelphia when he signed the rookie scale extension. There were thresholds that Embiid had to meet as far as games played and minutes played. That triggered some guarantees, especially toward the back half of the deal, because we all know how talented Zion is, but we also know he's missed more than half of the games that he's been available to play since he's been in the NBA, so he needs to be in the lineup. The Pelicans want to give him their money, but they also have to protect their downside in case he continues to be injured.
Yeah, the Pelicans need to see him. I think the rest of the NBA needs to see Zion Williamson. Yeah. We're missing out on a lot of fun with Zion. The Boston Celtics bolstered their lineup, trading for Malcolm Brogdon. The Pacers getting 5 players plus a first-rounder. Greg, is Brogdon that playmaker that they were missing in the finals?
Well, I think he helps their overall playmaking because this is a guy who's efficient in terms of shooting the basketball. And I just think it'll create more trust for that team. The depth makes a big difference. They didn't really have to give up a lot. They are going to take on some salary, but I think it's championship or bust for the Boston Celtics. They were right on the verge, and I do think Malcolm Brogdon, once he gets integrated into their culture, will be a difference maker.
Yeah, him and Marcus Smart could be pretty special back, especially defensively, right? Those two guys together.
Yeah, that whole starting five is pretty amazing from a defensive standpoint.
The team they lost to in the finals are the champion Golden State Warriors. They were busy. Staying is Kevon Looney. Coming in is Dante DiVincenzo, but they lose 4 players, including Gary Payton II and Otto Porter Jr. And I guess this is just part of doing business when you're the champions, right? You can't keep everybody.
It gets too expensive, and people see the role players play well on a big stage, and they aggressively come for those guys. So that's what happened with Peyton. That happened with Porter Jr. But I think they did a real nice job with the Looney contract. I think that was one of the better values in the NBA so far in free agency. And then Dante DiVincenzo, a young player. To Greg's point earlier, on an earlier show, I think the way he'll shoot the ball and the shots he will get playing off of their stars. He'll get better looks in Golden State than he's gotten in his career. I like the age and talent. I think that could be a diamond in the rough for the Warriors.
Yeah, depth, as we've seen, so important in the playoffs, even for these best teams. And the Golden State Warriors just retooling at this point. We are still waiting on the KD bomb. Or are they a team that maybe rebuild on the fly? Do they go? Which way do you see them going? Because as of right now, it looks like they want to keep Donovan Mitchell.
That's what I'm hearing. They haven't put Mitchell on the trade market yet. Donovan has not requested a trade to this point. I think a lot of what they will try to do is similar to what the Portland Trail Blazers have done around Damian Lillard. You remember the Blazers last year, they went down in the standings, especially when Lillard was out of the lineup, but then they were aggressive this offseason, bringing in Jeremy Grant, bringing in Gary Payton II, and they're going to try to come right back up again in Portland and be in the playoff mix. I don't think Danny Ainge and the group in Utah are done dealing, GA. I think they'll keep going. Now they have a lot of assets in terms of not only the draft picks and the draft rights to Walker Kessler, but they also have smaller, more tradable contracts like Patrick Beverley and Malik Beasley. So from a salary matching standpoint, those deals, and most of them are ending or have player options for next year, those deals are easier to move toward the end of it financially. So I think Utah will keep going and try to reset the roster around Donovan.
I think Ryan makes a great point. They're almost have like a blank slate. And they're going to let the league determine what direction they go in. By that, I mean they're very fine with keeping Donovan Mitchell and trying to build around him unless someone makes him an offer that blows him away. And we've seen Danny Ainge have a lot of success in building a team in Boston. He did a great job, not just accruing picks, but drafting well. And so I think he's looking at a similar scenario here. where it's even more important, because there are similarities between Boston and Utah. They're not free agent destinations. And so, therefore, you have to do a really good job with your ability to trade and evaluate and draft talent. And I think Danny's proven to do that. And I think this is a great opportunity for him to kind of revamp that team.
Quickly, the expectations for Utah over the last few years have been sky high, and they just have not come through. Why didn't it work for them?
They weren't good enough. The reality is, if you looked at their roster, they had one dynamic offensive player. That's it, in Donovan Mitchell. Jordan Clarkson is a solid six-man and can score, but when you look at the makeup of their roster, most of their guys have to have advantages created for them to be good offensive players. And when you get in the postseason, where a team's on the same schedule and they have time to prepare and take things away from you, you need elite-level talent offensively to get over the hump, and that's what's been holding them back, not having enough offensive talent to compete with the elites.
Yeah, it just feels like a win-win situation for Rudy Gobert right now and for the Utah Jazz, right? Break away and see what happens. Zach LaVine. Kevin Durant has been known to make a headline or two. His trade request has shifted the entire landscape of the NBA. We're on KD watch as the night goes on at NBA TV. Meanwhile, there's a new set of Twin Towers in the NBA as Rudy Gobert is on his way to Minnesota for a huge haul. What does that mean for Donovan Mitchell and the Jazz moving forward? Plus, rumors and reports of a Kyrie Irving, LeBron James reunion, they are heating up. He wants LA. LA reportedly wants him. The NBA just does not miss when it comes to the drama. Welcome to Free Agent Fever. To Bill Cream alongside Ryan McDonough, Greg Anthony. It has been a long day. I am 2.5 Red Bulls in. I just realized I'm going to have to go to sleep at some point, but I just opened this Red Bull. I feel bad not finishing it now. But I'm going to need it because we're going to be here for a few minutes. And we got to talk about the transactions that have happened throughout the day. We're going to get into that Rudy Gobert trade in a few moments. But first, we start with Kevin Durant and where he is going. Ryan, at this point, it's been a little bit of time. It's been some hours, some separation. If you're Sean Marks, are you calling him up and trying to convince him to maybe rescind this trade request at this point?
I think you're doing a number of things. That may be one of them. What you're also doing is talking to the other 29 teams and setting a very high bar. And we've seen the bar, in my opinion, go up today with the package that Minnesota gave up to get Rudy Gobert. Kevin Durant's a much better player. He is also on a 4-year contract. He fits with every team in the league. And so the dance and the balance, Greg, is if you have free agents, how long are you willing to wait? How long are the players and the agents willing to wait, in terms of KD holding up the league and the business they're doing? Because everybody has their eyes on Brooklyn. But as you know, as a former player, the player and the agent has to do what's best for him, not necessarily wait on KD.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting also because, what we might think of certain players, someone in the front office may evaluate and think dearly. I mean, the analogy I would use is a draft board, right? Somebody who has this guy number 1 on their board, someone else may have him number 8. So it's going to be dependent upon what Brooklyn looks at. Let's say with the hypothetical of a DeAndre Ayton. I mean, they may view him in a much higher regard. Therefore, maybe they don't get the same type of deal that you saw with Rudy Gobert. But ultimately, I do think something's going to happen. I think you're going to see Kevin moving on. And I also think he's going to end up on a contender, whether it be Phoenix or Miami or a wild card, which is also a distinct possibility.
In your mind right now, Ryan, who's kind of the front runner as far as just having the assets to acquire a guy like Kevin Durant?
The Suns do, but the Ayton factor complicates things with him being a restricted free agent. Base year compensation issues are involved, as is the hard cap for Brooklyn receiving a player in a sign and trade. So I think that's where it's more complicated than maybe it looks externally, because you might have to involve a third team or a fourth team. Also, keep an eye on the Boston Celtics, led by Jaylen Brown. A package there I think would be very intriguing. And the Toronto Raptors. They have a lot of young talent. And another factor, Brooklyn doesn't have to trade him. They don't have to trade him today. They don't have to trade him at any time. So that's why this could play out for a while. And I think Sean Marks and his staff will continue to ask for a big package. And to your point earlier in the bill, maybe recruit KD behind the scenes to try to get this to simmer down a little bit to take some pressure off the franchise in the short term.
And Gia, what about Kyrie Irving and all of this now? He's kind of waiting to see what happens here with KD, I'm assuming.
No, I don't think he's waiting at all. I think that ship has sailed. I think he is looking to be moved as well. And I think the organization at this point